Shabbat Shalom. It's so great to be together tonight. This weekend, we are marking the birthday and the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Born on January 15th, 1929, Dr. King was a Baptist minister and a key figure in the civil rights movement. He organized a number of marches and protests, was instrumental in the Memphis sanitation workers' strike, the Montgomery bus boycott, and the March on Washington. He's remembered for his advocacy of nonviolence and the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which, by the way, was drafted in part at the Reform Movement's Religious Action Center office. In a speech to the Union for Reform Judaism's biennial in 1963, Dr. King highlighted the involvement of Jews in the civil rights movement and charged us to continue our pursuit of social justice. Tomorrow night, you will have the chance to see and discuss the film Shared Legacies, which tells the story of the alliance of Blacks and Jews in this struggle. So as we pray together this evening, let us reaffirm our commitment to the pursuit of social justice. We continue with Lo Alecha.
Lo Alecha is a song that I actually first sang in 2003 or 4 when Rabbi Singer was the rabbi up at Temple Sinai, and with the Brotherhood, we did a Shabbat, and I sang this. This afternoon, I was looking for a video of Jeff Tepper and his partner who wrote this and sang it many times, because I wanted to play along with them to rehearse it, and I saw that they had English words too. First time I ever saw that. So I want to give those a try tonight also. And this is, you know, the song Lo Alecha. It's not our job to finish it, but we can't not start the work. We have to do that, start the work. Lo Alecha hamachar ligmor, Lo Alecha ligmor, Lo Alecha hamachar ligmor, Lo Alecha ligmor, Melo ata ben chorin lehibatel mimena melo, ata ben chorin melo, ata ben chorin lehibatel mimena melo, ata ben chorin. Don't give up because the road is long. Give it a little bit more. Don't give up because your hope is gone. Give it a little bit more. The work is hard. Every day may bring you joy or sorrow, but we've got to be strong. So keep your eyes on the promise of a new tomorrow, and give your voice to this song. Lo Alecha hamachar ligmor, Lo Alecha ligmor, Lo Alecha hamachar ligmor, Lo Alecha ligmor, Lo ata ben chorin lehibatel mimena melo, ata ben chorin melo, ata ben chorin lehibatel mimena melo, ata ben chorin.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Jordan, for that beautiful rendition of Lo Alecha. We were all bopping along. If you have joined us after we welcomed, I'm Rabbi Lindy Resnick from Congregation Emmanuel. We are joined tonight with Temple Beth El from Riverside. Such an honor to be all together tonight. And I just want to lift up some of the other clergy members that are with us tonight. Our Rabbi Emeritus, Rabbi Hillel Cohn, is here, and his beautiful wife, Rita. We welcome you. We're so glad you're with us tonight, Rabbi Cohn. And I saw we also have Reverend Monroe here this evening, and I am not sure if any of our other reverends who will be joining us tomorrow night are here with us or not. My dogs as well would like to say Shabbat Shalom to you all, and I turn it over now to Congregation Emmanuel congregant Leslie Soltz to light the Shabbat candles.
All right. My Shabbat candles are 5 because this is a candelabra that my grandmother was given by her father when she got married, and when she promised to always light Shabbat lights. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen.
Amen. Blessed are you, God, Spirit of the universe, who commands us to kindle the Shabbat lights. And my apologies to Reverend Monroe Mabone. Hopefully I said your name correctly. We are honored to have you with us for this very special Shabbat. And now back over to Canterburn Vogel for Kiddush, the blessing over the wine.
Honored to be here.
I welcome everyone as well from Congregation Emmanuel and Canterburn Vogel. If you have a wine goblet, a Kiddush cup, please join me in lifting our cups at this time. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uv'ratzon hinchilano zikaron lemase v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra kodesh zecher litziat Mitzrayim kivanu v'chata ve'otanu kitashta mikol harim ve'shabbat kodecha be'ahava u'v'ratzon hinchatanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat l'chaim.
L'chaim, amen. So our Torah portion this week is Vayera, and it's a perfect one for celebrating Dr. King's justice work. Moses has encountered God at the burning bush, and God instructs Moses to confront Pharaoh, to speak truth to power, and to demand that Pharaoh let the Israelites go. But Moses is reluctant. He's a reluctant prophet, and he protests. I don't speak too well. No one will believe me. Pharaoh is stubborn and will refuse. Now, if you think about it, aren't these the kind of arguments that we sometimes make when we're faced with a need to speak up or speak out? to act in defense of the weak and the persecuted? Who am I to say anything? My lone voice or even my lone vote will not mean anything. You can't fight City Hall. We get lulled into complacency and inaction. But we have seen, especially over the past year, that this is not an option. Our democracy is too fragile. Particularly as Jews, we have a responsibility to make this world a better place. As Mordecai says to his cousin Esther, who knows whether you have come to this kingdom for such a time as this? Lahadodi.
We welcome the Shabbat bride. Lahadodi, likrat gala, b'nei Shabbat, nekabla, Lahadodi, likrat gala, b'nei Shabbat, nekabla, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom mevorach, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom mevorach. Likrat gala, b'nei Shabbat, nekabla, Lahadodi, likrat gala, b'nei Shabbat, nekabla. We continue now with the Chatzi Kaddish. Vit gadal, vit kadash, shemei rabba. V'yamad yivrach yiruteh, v'yamlich malechuteh. B'chayechonu v'yamechon, uv'chayed God Beit Yisrael. Bagala, uvizman kariv, v'meru, amen, Yehi shemei Rabba mivorach, leolam v'lalem armaya, yitbarach, Yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitba'ar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitala, v'yithalal, shemei dekudesha, brichu leila, min kol birchata, v'shirata, Tush b'chada v'nechemada, damiran b'alma, v'vimeru. Amen. If you are able, we invite you now to rise for our call to worship, the Baruch Hu. La 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 Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach המבורך לעולם ועד. המבורך, המבורך לעולם ועד.
I'm going to read you now some words from Dr. King's Nobel acceptance speech. And I must say, I'm humbled to read this incredible leader's words tonight. I accept this award today with an abiding faith in America, an audacious faith in the future of mankind. I refuse to accept despair as the final response to the ambiguities of history. I refuse to accept the idea that the present nature of human beings makes them morally incapable of reaching up for the eternal oughtness that forever confronts them. I refuse to accept the idea that man is mere flotsam and jetsam in the river of life, unable to influence the unfolding events which surround him. I refuse to accept the view that mankind is so tragically bound to the starless midnight of racism and war that the bright daybreak of peace and brotherhood can never become a reality. I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. I believe that even amid today's mortar bursts and whining bullets, there is still hope for a brighter tomorrow. I believe that wounded justice, lying prostrate on the blood-flowing streets of our nations, can be lifted from this dust of shame to reign supreme among the children of all humankind. I have the audacity to believe that peoples everywhere can have 3 meals a day for their bodies, education and culture for their minds, and dignity, equality, and freedom for their spirits. I still believe that we shall overcome. Now we turn back to Canterbury and Vogel for the Shema.
And once again, if you are able, we invite you to rise for our central prayer, the Shema, which speaks of oneness and unity. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malechuto Leolam Vaed.
And Temple Bethel's wonderful Melamedet, Carol Lee Jaspin, is going to lead us in the Ve'ahavta.
Thank you. Please join me. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha V'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shiftecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha uv'kshartam le'od al yadecha v'hayu letotafot beinenecha Uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha laman tiskaru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai Hitem Kedoshim Lelohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem. Asher Hotzeti Etchem Me'eretz Mitzrayim. Liot Lachem Lelohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Thank you, Carolee.
Pleasure, my pleasure.
So this is an introduction to the Michamocha, the Song of the Sea, written by Rabbi Jill Hammer. Then Moses and Miriam sang this song. Every day we sing of liberation, because every day we wake up to Pharaoh. Right now, workers who arrive at new employment in a faraway country are finding out that they are indentured servants with no passport, no payment for their work, and no one to hear their misery. At this very moment, women and girls and boys are being kidnapped into slavery so that their bodies may be bought and sold. Young men are stolen to be killers in brutal wars, and workers are sold to factories to make clothes and mine elemental metals. And at this moment, a soul withers in airless space to feed someone else's appetite. We sing of liberation, not only because there were once slaves, but because there still are slaves. God still looks down in sorrow on divine images, bruised and broken. The world turns creaking with its burden of greed. Pharaoh wakes and yawns and stretches, not wondering who made their bricks on which he walks. The sea waits mid-wave to split and let the people through. The sea cannot part until we hold out our hands, until we break the yokes and throw them into raging waters. All of freedom's voices live in these waters. We sing the sea song until the powers of the earth stop to listen. We sing the sea song until every slave has passed through the birth waters. We sing the sea song until everyone sings the sea song, the Michamocha.
This is a very special Michamocha for this particular Shabbat, written by my very good friend and colleague, Cantor Eric Concius. He has incorporated verses of MLK as well as juxtaposed the text of Michamocha with another very familiar melody. I'm so grateful to Jordan Lund for his narration, as well as our choir members. I'll try to get them all in. We'll, let's see. Elliot Levine joined us from Riverside, and Michelle Anktel and Shel Zipperstein and Lisa Wise-Wolk and Barb Smith, and I'm not sure about Grace Harris, and I'm not sure whom I've forgotten, but we're so grateful to all our choir members, and of course, Jerry Ripley at the keyboard.
When your children witnessed your power, they extolled you and gave you thanks. And yet we, your children, still need to experience your redemptive power in the world. We need hope, and we need faith. In the words of Dr. King, with this faith we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we all will be free one day. when this happens,
when we allow freedom to reign, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, he will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
That was a beautiful, beautiful version. Wow.
May I also just give a nod to our wonderful techie Stuart Sweet, who helped tie everything together. Thank you so much, Stuart.
And he continues to pull some strings behind the scenes right now. So just as the sea opened to offer our people liberation from slavery, so too we are free when we're able to exercise our ability to vote and to express our positions on the issues of the day. The reform movement offers an incredible opportunity to train our teens in the legislative process through the Lataken Social Justice Seminar weekends that are held every year, except for this one, in Washington, D.C. During these weekends, teens also get an opportunity to lobby their congressional representatives on matters of particular significance to them. Last year, I had the great fortune of bringing my 5 confirmation students to DC, and 2 of them are here this evening to tell us a little bit about their experience. We're first going to hear from Brooke Whiting and then from Brian Perlstein.
Shabbat Shalom. Hi, my name is Brooke Whiting. I'm in 11th grade and I attend Poly High School. Last February, I got the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. with my confirmation class, thanks to the Religious Action Committee. I had an incredible experience learning about Tikkun Olam, which means repairing the world. I learned how to advocate for what is right for our country and for everyone's rights by lobbying. We had the opportunity to see a lot of D.C. and what the city had to offer. One of the most memorable places we went to was the Holocaust Museum. Seeing all the people who lost their lives was very hard to take in, but I did learn that there were so many people who stood up for what they believed in. Even if it wasn't the biggest difference to the world, they made the biggest difference to somebody's world. I also got the chance to meet many wonderful people and hear their stories too. I learned so much and had such an inspiring experience. Thank you.
Thanks, Brooke. And Brian.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I'm Brian Perlstein, and I'm currently a junior at Riverside STEM High School. I find it very fitting that the theme of the service is social justice, seeing how today is the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., one of the foremost champions of civil rights and a democratic revolutionary who I personally look up to this day. It was the success of his campaign and the content of his character that pushed me into the sphere of social justice and opened the door into the world of progressivism. So when Rabbi Singer gave me the opportunity to mix my passion for activism with the opportunity to create a real social change, I knew it would be an experience of a lifetime. At the Lataken Social Justice Seminar, we met with other Reformed Jews and learned about different social justice issues focused through the lens of Jewish thought. Though this was fun on its own, discussing these socio-political issues is only one half of the equation. It is the act of pushing for reform directly that is integral to social justice. At Lataken, we were able to take what we learned and push for change by lobbying our congressional representative, Mark Takano, highlighting the topic at hand and discussing its importance to Judaism. From that trip, if nothing else, I learned one thing, and that is how social justice and the teachings of the Torah go hand in hand. That the importance of going to temple on Friday nights was not to be told what to do, what to say, or how to say it. Instead, it was learning the importance of treating others with respect and standing up for what is right. The Lataken seminar taught me that Reform Judaism meant aspiring to be like Dr. King and pushing for the change that we want to see in the world. and that is why I am proud to be here standing today as a member of the Reformed Jewish community. And I would like to greatly thank the temple for allowing me this experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I'm proud of both of you and of all the teens who were there last year, and hopefully next year we'll be back in DC. And Elliot Levine has a special piece for us.
This is a setting from a part of a speech by Martin Luther King from 1965 after the march from Montgomery to Selma, with the eternal question, how long will it take? No, you are asking today, how long will it take? However difficult the moment, however frustrating the hour, it will not be long. It will not be long.
How long, not long, how long, not long.
Because truth crushed to earth will rise again.
Not long, how long, not long.
Because no lie can live forever.
Not long,
because you still reap what you sow. Because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Justice, 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 justice. I know you are asking today. I know you are asking today. How long will it take?
Thank you, Elliot, for that spirited rendition. So beautiful and such an honor to have you with us tonight. I offer us now an interpretation of the Hashkivenu by my teacher of blessed memory, Rabbi Richard Levy. Cause us to lie down in peace, but pressure so disturbs our sleep. Will I read all I have to do by the deadline? Will I finish my papers, my taxes, my errands by the deadline? Will my family keep arguing? My friends keep hurting me? Will I keep dreaming that I'm running breathless to the train just as it lurches forward and pulls away? And can they lie down in peace? Who sleep upon a grate at night? Who sift through garbage for their meals and hold up signs for work at street corners? What troubled dreams are theirs? Spread over them the sukkah of your peace, to warm them in the frigid night with the knowledge of your presence. Spread over us the generous heart, to build a sukkah in the park, to raise a shelter in the streets, where all who have no home may come to find protection within your love, which needs no home, which can spur us all to build the shelters, find the food for those who find their only home in you. So occupied with stretching your shelter over others, we shall have less time to worry over deadlines. But as we take a breath from building, we can fill the time with doing what we need to, write our papers, do our errands, before we go back to serving you, because we shall have drawn a line that holds back death from hunger, from cold, from loneliness, and we shall stretch our new sukkah of peace over our family who needs our love, over friends who hunger for our attention. And in our dreams, we shall arrive at the station with plenty of time. Time to lay down on our bench in the waiting room in peace.
If you are able, once again, we ask you to rise for the tefillah, our standing prayer that begins on page 164. And after we sing the meditation, we invite you to pray silently on your own through page 180. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha Shechina sfatai tiftechi ufi yagid tehilate.
Must have hit something.
You're muted.
We invite you to continue your davening silently as we segue to the conclusion of the Amidah, Oseh Shalom.
Oh, say shalom, shalom bimromav, say shalom aleinu, ve'yakol Yisrael, ve'inu amen. Say shalom aleinu v'yakol Yisrael, amen. Oh, say shalom, shalom b'mamav, say shalom aleinu, ve'yakol Yisrael.
Amen, amen. What a beautiful way to exit our Amidah with peace, Jordan. Peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. These words by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose honor and memory we honor this evening. At this point in our service, in a moment, you will see the names come up on the screen of those for whom we are sending healing prayers to tonight. And tonight we're going to do something a little different because there's so many of us here. So we ask you, if it's your practice to read those names aloud, we're going to invite you in your own homes to read those names aloud, but you can remain muted. And then we're going to invite all of you, if you have anyone else who you need to send healing prayers to tonight, put their names into the chat box. And after all of those names have been read by everyone here in our communal Shabbat this evening, Cantor will lead us in the Mishaberach. Cantor, you're muted. We cannot hear your beautiful voice.
Sorry about that. We'll start it again.
Let us hold those in our hearts who need healing energy as Cantor sings the Mishabera. Let it wash over all of us with
may the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mikor habracha rabotenu, bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, of mind, and of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Praying for healing for all those in our congregations, friends and family of congregants, and those in our community who are ill. The very first act that we see Moses committing as an adult is an act of justice. Moses sees a slave master oppressing a slave, and he strikes him. Thus was born the Jewish mandate to pursue justice. Tonight's service is a tribute to the work of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It's also a call to all of us to make sure that the pursuit of justice continues today. There are a number of ways that we can organize ourselves to work towards a more just America, and a number of opportunities to get involved. I would like to just mention two. One is grassroots, and the other is grass tops. In grass tops organizing, leaders come to you with issues around which to rally. And this is the model of the California Religious Action Center, or RAC California. RAC California includes some 100 Reform congregations across the state of California. And every year, the leadership team, which I'm on, elects a couple of legislative priorities, and we lobby our representatives to pass these bills. I think many of you have been involved in this and in going to Sacramento to do just that. Now, in grassroots organizing, the issues emerge from the bottom up through one-on-one meetings, as well as house meetings with like 10, 15 people at a time. Discussions are held to see what is important to each and every one of you. Ultimately, one of the key questions that enables us to surface these concerns is, what keeps you up at night? So, as a brief exercise to expose you to this strategy, I'm going to ask all of you to answer that question in the chat. And then if a couple of you feel comfortable sharing what you wrote and why, I'll ask you to do that. So please, in the chat, tell us what keeps you up at night. Okay, and I'm going to start reading what's in there. Climate change, systemic racism, especially in the Inland Empire, gun violence, climate change. Oy, going too fast. Let's see. Safety and happiness of my children facing an uncertain future, the future of democracy, lack of mutually agreed facts, the anger people have for each other, hunger, climate change again, class struggle and homelessness, excess deaths due to narcissism at the top, continued racism throughout the country, the future of our grandchildren, racism, cancel culture, homelessness, it's a slow death, food insufficiency, What's happening in Washington with President Trump and what he's doing to make things hard for Biden. Racism, educational inequity, gun violence, divisiveness, COVID, inequality in healthcare, the possibility of civil war, healthcare, the rise of fascism in the United States, climate change, homelessness, so many people hungry, my friends and family surviving the pandemic, hatred in America, attempt to overthrow democracy, extremes of poverty and wealth instead of some equity, fear of our democracy, inequality, losing my daughter to COVID-19 regardless of a vaccine, income inequality, homeless children. So this is the kind of thing where we would have these meetings, and out of this, racism comes up again, different truths, climate change, poverty, the patriarchy, homeless children. So you see that there's certain themes that keep emerging, and those would probably be what, if this was a group deciding, what our priorities would be, we might pick climate change, or we might pick what's the future we're going to hand to our children, or racism. And actually, the reform movement is focusing a lot on racism these days, on systemic racism, on ways in which that we can address racism in so many different ways. I recommend going to the Reform Judaism website and taking a look at the resources and some of the suggestions that are being made for how we can combat racism and systemic racism, because as somebody pointed out the other day, racism has kind of changed definitions. It's no longer, I support the Ku Klux Klan. That's not what racism really, of course that exists, but it's systemic racism whereby a group of people gets privileges that another group doesn't. So would somebody like to share what they wrote and why they wrote it and how they might consider addressing this issue? Don't be shy. Now I only see one page at a time, so I can't see all the hands that are being raised because there's so many, I don't know where to pick. Steve Tick, please, thank you.
Sure, I'll go ahead. I wrote just people being angry at each other. And I'm guilty. I'm on Facebook and I'm guilty. I've been in those endless arguments where you're shouting online and you're speaking and you're arguing, but you're not listening. And I'm fearful of what we've become as a country. I'm fearful that people list the numbers of friends they have lost because of politics, because of differences of opinions, and people are just angry. We talk about love, we talk about tolerance, but deep down inside, there is that anger and that fear and that animosity and that distrust. And until we can turn that around, until we can face it honestly, until we can raise my hand and say, I'm guilty of it too, will we ever get anywhere with it?
Thank you for your honesty, Steve. Actually, I was in a meeting earlier today with the leadership team of RAC California, and that is actually one of the issues we talked about, is how can we model a different way of disagreeing? We tried to do that last year by presenting Proposition 15 and not taking a side, having both sides explain their position. And hopefully that's something that we can continue to do. And somebody said synagogues are really a good place to model this because, we're friends, we like each other, we need each other, we help each other, we celebrate each other's joys, and we, give each other a shoulder to cry on when we go through sorrows. So if we can't find ways to disagree, it's going to be hard to figure out how the rest of the country will. Does somebody else want to share something? Yes, Shayna. I'm sorry, Shayna. I saw Shayna's hand. And then who else?
You're letting me soapbox, which anyone who knows me knows is very dangerous. But thank you for the opportunity. I said class and homelessness, and that's something that I've put down because I've come very close to being homeless, have thankfully avoided it several times. But one thing that I want to mention that I don't think is brought up enough is that for each of your issues, if they were political issues, homelessness is intricately tied to them as well, because the homeless have the lowest voter turnout of any group. It's also an issue of suffrage. issue of homelessness. As for what we can do to address that, well, on a systemic level, I'm not even sure. But on an individual level, I think it starts when we look at the people on the street, not as people to be afraid of, but as people who could be us, or could be our children, could be our friends.
Beautiful, Shayna. And
Thank you.
actually, that's one of the things that RAC California is looking into, is the issue of homelessness, which includes as well the willingness of people to change zoning requirements in their neighborhoods so that there's more affordable housing that can be built. And that's always a challenge. People don't want it in their backyard, etc. Okay, who else? One more person. I heard somebody before who was trying to speak.
I'd like to say something.
Please.
I mentioned racism, and I'm very disturbed because there were protests for months, and I don't feel like anything was accomplished. We have a problem with police singling out Blacks and people of color, and a problem with police brutality in general. I mean, sometimes even white people are victim of it. We need to have a way where these cops can get fired. And right now, we don't have that. The police are too strong. And that be dealt. We have a few places that have done this defunding of the police, like Portland, seen their murder rates more than double since they've done that. And I'm just disturbed because for all of this long protest movement that went on this last year in 2020, just nothing got accomplished. It was just all for nothing. And that is so disturbing to me.
Well, Grace,
Thank you.
you know, I'm a pretty cynical person. However, let me suggest that the protests over the summer did bring a certain consciousness to people about what's going on out there. And what I want to challenge all of us to do tonight is, if we're concerned about all these issues, what are we going to do? Okay, so we can do this kind of organizing where maybe somebody who's a social action chair, looking at you, Sandy, can start having some of these conversations and decide what issue we would like to work on as a community. Or we can get involved with RAC California, among other opportunities. So I really want to challenge all of us tonight to see, you know, okay, we're disturbed about all these things. We don't want to leave a world in terrible shape to our children and grandchildren. What are we going to do? And I think tomorrow night, when we have our screening and discussion, what we'll see is that, at least as far as Blacks and Jews, we were a pretty strong alliance with each other and got a lot accomplished, like the civil rights legislation. So who can we find as allies now? How can we?
And by the way, Georgia I'm sorry, let me turn
Yeah.
it off. Georgia just elected a Jewish man and a Black man as
Right,
senators
that's
from
good.
Georgia. So I'm not sure that the summer was all for naught.
Yeah. So, you know, and there are other allies that we could, because, you know, we have to work together. So I appreciate all your comments, and I really appreciate those of you who spoke up. It's hard in front of 90 plus people, but let's just have this be the beginning of the conversation and not the end. I'd love to spend more time on this, but you know, we don't want to have a service that lasts for hours. So let's continue this conversation tomorrow. And my president, the president of Temple Beth El, Amy Pearlstein, would like to make a few announcements. Amy.
First off, thank you so much to everybody who contributed to this wonderful service. It's great to have both of our congregations come together for such an important time in this. So first off, thank you. We have on our website, tberiv.org, all of our upcoming events and announcements. I urge you to look at it. We have a couple of big events coming up. So thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and throw it to Stuart Sweet, President.
Thank you so much, Amy. There are so many people to thank tonight. Rabbi Suzanne Singer, Rabbi Lindy Resnick, Cantor Jennifer Byrne-Vogel, Jerry Ripley, Jordan Lund, Elliot Levine, our entire choir. I could go on. all evening, but it's wonderful that we're all able to be here tonight. I'd like to invite everybody here and all of your friends to come back to this same Zoom room tomorrow night at 6 p.m. We're going to do a little Havdalah, and then we're going to show a film called Shared Legacies, which is really interesting. I've watched it a couple times now, and it's about the way that the Jewish community and the Black community have come together over the last 60 years. I guarantee you'll enjoy it. And there will be some discussion afterwards. Also, I'd like to point out for those of us who are a little bit older than millennials, that both San Bernardino and Riverside County make it possible to get the vaccine now for people over 65. And yes, Ms. Gilman, we use the same link. So please use these links that I put in the chat or anything else you find on the internet. Please, please, please get vaccinated. It's safe, it's healthy, it's the least that you can do for your friends and neighbors. Thank you so much, all of you, and Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much, Stuart and Amy. We go now to Canterburn Vogel for Aleinu.
If you're following along in Mishkan Tefillah, our Aleinu is on page 586. And once again, if you are able, I invite you to rise. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וקור עלינו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
San Bernardino program too.
ושמו אחד.
A poem praying for us and then and them right now by Judy Chicago. And then all of what has divided us will merge. And then compassion will be wedded to power. And then softness will come to a world that is often harsh and unkind. And then both women and men will be gentle. And then both men and women will be strong. And then no other person will be subject to another's will. And then all will be rich and varied. And then all will share equally in the earth's abundance. And then all will care for the sick and the weak and the old. And then all will nourish the young. And then all will cherish life's creatures. And then all will live in harmony with each other and the earth. And then everywhere will be called Eden once again. And we say all together, Amen. So now, as we did before for our healing prayers, we turn now to the time in our service where we honor those who are no longer living. And we will in a moment see the names of all of those from both of our communities for whom we are reciting Kaddish Yatom, our prayer for mourners. And we invite you in your homes to read those names. If you have someone who you are saying Kaddish for tonight or who is not on the list, please add their name to the chat box. We'll take a moment to take in and lift up all of those names as well. And then we will invite you together as two communities who are connected as one tonight. If you are comfortable, you can unmute yourselves and we will together recite Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. If you happen to have a Mishkan Tefillah with you, it is found on page 598. If not, not to worry, it will also come up on the screen. And if you're able, in body or mind or spirit, we invite you please to rise. Wish to recite with us, and if the sound is too much, you can turn your sound down. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah ve'elna divrach Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, ushkachata v'nechamata, Amiran v'yama v'yoru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shlamaya, v'chayim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael, yoru amen. Osei shalom hu yasei shalom aleinu v'yakol Yisrael, yoru amen. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. Now we are honored to listen to the beautiful music of Jordan blowing in the wind. We invite you please to remute yourselves as we hear this beautiful closing song.
See before he can see the sky. Yes, and how many ears must one man have before he can hear people cry? Yes, and how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Amen, amen. Just a few thank yous before we go. As our temple president mentioned, there's not enough time to thank everyone who worked tirelessly to put together this amazing service, but my deepest gratitude to Rabbi Suzanne Singer, whose Torah is justice and who I learn from each and every day. So thank you, Rabbi Singer. Thank you, Cantor Byrne-Vogel, my partner in crime, who helps make this world a better place and our congregation better. Thank you, our temple president, Stuart Sweet. Thank you, Amy, for joining us. Thank you, Jordan, for your beautiful song and music and voice. Thank you, Jerry Ripley, for the beautiful music that you play for us always. Thank you to our choir, and thank you to all of you. Please, as our Rabbi Emeritus wrote in the chat, we hope that tonight has uplifted you and has renewed our sense as communities to fight for justice. Please join us tomorrow night at 6 p.m. right back here for not only an incredible film screening, but also some wonderful conversations with our partners in the Black community from churches throughout the Inland Empire and their leaders and reverends and pastors. We are so honored to get to begin and continue these important conversations. And we wish each and every one of you a Shabbat Shalom, a Shabbat filled with justice. If you wish to unmute yourselves and say Shabbat Shalom to a friend in the screen, go ahead and do that. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.